These charts align with your texts on Varna. Indeed, the duties of each are defined here. And this confirms their separation? Yes, as shown in the ancient laws.
Today we've got a really fascinating story about identity, power, and, well, survival. We're going to look at how one of the world's oldest elite groups pulled off an incredible feat, completely rewriting its own origin story, just to stay on top.
So, here's the big question, right? How does a group whose entire claim to fame is that they're a foreign conquering elite suddenly turn around and say, nope, actually, we've been here all along, we're the original people? It sounds, well, impossible. But as we'll see, it was an absolutely brilliant strategic play to hold on to power.
All right, so let's set the scene. We're in British colonial India, and the British have this massive problem. How on earth do you categorize and control a subcontinent that is just so incredibly diverse? Well, their solution was this huge administrative project that ended up creating a theory of identity that would stick around for a very long time.
Starting back in 1871, the British rolled out the census. But listen, this was not just about counting heads. You got to think of it more like an administrative weapon. They used it to force this really rigid, hierarchical structure onto a society that was actually way more fluid, all because it made them easier to control. And the cornerstone of this whole project? It was something called the Aryan Migration Theory. The idea itself was actually pretty simple, but incredibly powerful. It went like this. A superior, fair-skinned race of Aryans came into India, conquered the local darker-skinned people, and set themselves up as the rulers. And look, this was never really about history. It was all about creating a political justification for the hierarchy they were building.
And the way they classified people, it was incredibly simplistic, almost crude. British ethnographers basically created this black and white binary. You were either the Aryan conqueror or the Dravidian native. And it was all based on really lazy physical stereotypes. They were literally linking things like your skin color and the shape of your nose directly to your place in society.
Now, to make all of this sound official and, scientific, they came up with these ridiculous tools. Get this, the nasal index. There was a census commissioner, a guy named Herbert Risley, who literally went around measuring people's noses. The theory was that the narrower your nose, the purer your Aryan blood. I mean, it's complete pseudoscience, obviously, but wow, was it effective at selling their story. So what was the end game here? Well, they took this new racial theory and just mapped it directly onto the ancient Hindu social system, the Varna system. And guess who came out on top? The Brahmins, the priests and scholars. They were officially labeled the purest Aryans. This move completely racialized the caste system in a way that had never been done before.
Okay, and this is a really crucial point. This whole thing wasn't just forced on India by the British. High-caste Brahmins were active partners in this. They acted as the experts, the scholarly informants, digging up ancient texts that seemed to back up this new racial hierarchy. And why? Because in return, this theory cemented their elite status under British rule. It was a win-win for both sides.
But then, things started to change. As the Indian independence movement really started to catch fire, that same theory, the one that had guaranteed their elite status, suddenly became a huge problem. A liability, really. The game was changing, and a new nation needed a brand new story.
Now, this pivot didn't just happen overnight. It was a slow, deliberate process. If you look at this timeline, you can see it unfold. Early on, you had nationalists saying, hey, this whole invasion story is just a colonial trick to divide us. Then, after independence, the language softened a bit, from invasion to migration. And now, in recent years, it's done a complete 180. The narrative is all about indigenous origins, and it's even being written into official school textbooks today.
So what's this new narrative called? It's the out of India theory, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It completely flips the colonial model on its head. It argues that Aryan culture wasn't imported into India. No, it was born in India and spread outward to the rest of the world. A total reversal of the old story.
Okay, this right here really gets to the core of it all. Just look at the political usefulness of each theory. On one hand, you have the Aryan Migration Theory. Perfect for the British, right? It justified foreign rule, it created divisions. On the other hand, you have the Out of India Theory. Perfect for a new independent nation. It builds unity, it creates one single origin story for everyone. Two theories, two very different political jobs. Which of course brings us to the million-dollar question, why? Why make this pivot? Why would you throw away a story that had worked so well for you for so long?
Let's really dig into this, because this is the central puzzle.
Think about it. Ditching the Aryan migration theory meant giving up the very thing that propped up their elite status under the British. It seems completely counterintuitive. But the answer, of course, is that the entire political world had changed. They weren't in British India anymore. To put it simply, the old theory had become toxic. It was a huge political liability. For one, you had separatist movements in the South using it as fuel. Two, you had Dalit leaders using it to say, see, caste oppression is actually racial oppression. And maybe worst of all, it basically made the British seem like fellow Aryans, which really undermined the whole independence project. The theory was just tearing the new country apart.
So you see, the shift wasn't really about rejecting their history. It was a cold, rational calculation. It was a strategic move to adapt to a new reality, a world where national unity was suddenly way more valuable than an old colonial-era hierarchy.
Let's boil it down to a simple two-step strategy. Step 1. Colonial India. The strategy? Embrace the Aryan migration theory to lock in your elite status. Step 2. Independent India. The strategy? Ditch that theory and position yourself as the unifiers of a new, inclusive national identity. Same group, different playbook. And that right there is the key takeaway. This was never really about what actually happened in ancient history. It was about political strategy. It was a strategic pivot, pure and simple. They didn't change who they were, they just changed the rules of the game so they could stay on top. This quote from the source material just nails it. You leverage the Aryan theory to secure your status during the colonial era, and then you toss it aside after independence to build a new kind of Hindu nationalism. I mean, talk about a masterclass in political adaptation.
So, at the end of the day, you're left with two narratives that are polar opposites. One says we're foreign conquerors, the other says we are the original inhabitants. But both stories serve the exact same goal, making sure they held on to their leadership position no matter how much the world changed around them. And that kind of leaves us with one last big idea to chew on. This whole story, it's not just about India, is it? It's this incredible reminder that the stories we tell about history are never just about the past. They are powerful tools that we shape and reshape right now in the present to fit our political goals and to decide who we are. What we choose to believe about where we come from, well, it probably says a lot more about where we're trying to go.